like if your Bennett is otherwise occupied, if you need your Bennett like somewhere else, she's kind of not that good.
Raiden has a ton of competitive non-Bennett teams even without Dendro. And honestly, this weapon is pretty good in isolation, but there are a lot of practical issues. And then Aika kind of just has another craftable that is better and more comfortable.
So that was a fucking lie.
Hello there, Flip here, and today we're back with another trial in the Genshin Court series where... yeah, not really. I just want to use this video to go over a few of the things in my previous Genshin courts, and some of my worst takes, as well as just make this a general channel update of my plans, as I've gotten a lot of questions over the egg incident, so what better to go over that than my return video. But before we dive in, seeing as this video is mostly just going to be for my subscribers, I want to say thank you for all the support and nice messages, and I will eventually get through all of the DMs. So the big question, am I going to be quitting Genshin courts? No. Genshin courts are my favorite type of content to make, and there are still some creators I want to cover before I do retire the series, if that ever ends up happening. Compared to a year ago, my recent courts have been a lot more tame, with a disclaimer pointing at the exaggerated nature of them, which may not have been as apparent in my older ones. I've said a lot of times in my streams, my Discord server, and some comments that I don't really like my older Genshin courts, which should be standard, as I feel like my newer ones are a lot better, and for the first few ones I just wasn't that good at making them in a way I liked the best. The most obvious one being the I Want to Lose court, and my first Vars court, which are just filled with insults and blanket statements, while not explaining things all that well, so it can just come off as an attack, which is not the point of the series. The most recent trials aren't like that at all, and I feel like that kind of direction is what I want to carry on with, so the courts are still going to mostly feel the same. You don't need to worry about that. The Zyx court still isn't happening. Other than Genshin courts, I'm going to carry on with my usual meta commentary, but one thing I want to do more is just stream more frequently, so I can interact with you guys more directly and also improve my speaking on the fly skills. My official guide was really well received, which surprised me, so I want to make more guides on characters I'm really passionate about, and topics surrounding that, and clearing misconceptions in the community. Sometimes I would make videos just because, oh, this character's getting a rerun soon, or just because they're about to come out, but all of the times, I didn't really care about the character, causing me to just get things wrong or not fully consider some things, which is the reason I took my Alhaitham video down, because I felt like it was just too iffy reasoning to where I didn't like it that much. So if I am to make a guide or dedicated character video, I want it to be on a character I'm really passionate about, instead of just following the wave. This is the same reason why I haven't bothered making a Rio or Nouvellette guide, because I just don't like them that much. Also, I'm most likely not going to cover anything Navia related as she's ugly, but after Furina, I'll most definitely cover Cloud Retainer and Chlorinde. And well, that's the channel update done. Let's look at my worst takes, videos, whatever. Hey guys, Flip here, and today I Want to Lose finally slipped up, so I can now officially sentence this clown ass in a Genshin court. I already died of cringe immediately. I have this thing where I really don't like how my voice sounds, which doing content creating has helped with, as I have to hear my voice so often I've become numb to it. So hearing this automatic insult in my younger voice just frames the video in a very negative light, and I didn't even get to explaining why I called him a clown in the first place. His videos are very dummy based tests or comparisons, which is who does more damage than this other character in this specific scenario. And while that really isn't bad in isolation, the problem with this approach is that for all the brain dead coping waifu players that want to say their waifu is better than another, they will reference I Want to Lose's videos, even though the level 70 C0 Raiden is not going to hit a fraction of the damage he hits in his videos. Not gonna lie, I completely forgot that I explained all of this. But yeah, most of the problems with I Want to Lose back then, because I haven't watched any of his recent videos, was mostly just because at the time a lot of people would use his tests as proof for X being better than X, when the tests themselves were framed in such a poor light. And even though he has the disclaimer in the first part of the video, he still uses these tests, which are quite flawed, to make conclusions, and sells them as fact, so it's kind of misleading. When you make up a formula, you at least have to explain the methodology behind it. Like for example, I have a metric I call the bitches potential. Basically, if you have more than 500 achievements on Genshin, there is zero potential for you to get bitches. Potentially might be the worst joke ever made. Like bro, we're looking at the same thing, right? This is why it's so fucking flawed. Speedrunning isn't a good metric to compare characters when shit like this is possible. To add more detail to that, back then most Genshin theory crafting was about clearing with lower levels of investment. So basically, what would be the minimal amount of things you need to be able to just clear, and that would be the standard. Because if you're at a high enough investment to clear the abyss in like 20 seconds, what theory crafting would you honestly need? Or how would that apply to players who are just trying to start the game? At least now though, that perspective has shifted, and different levels of investment are factored when talking about theory crafting. And for continuous Abyss runs, assuming they aren't just C6 or 5, and have a reasonable cost, I think speedrunners use gold to judge how much investment something needs. Comparing clear times honestly isn't that bad of a metric, but still the way I Win to Lose did these tests were pretty shit. So I just wanted to add more nuance to this, as this is something my previous videos lacked. And as much as I don't want to defend Mr. Wardrobe Malfunction over here, because fuck, Zhao literally has worse drip than Bennett, I just have to say that speedrunning tests really suck for him, because he isn't a burst damage dealer and has his damage distribution spread out over his whole rotation. That's also why he gets bent and fucked over in this Abyss, because the way he deals damage isn't favorable to fight most of the enemies. Zhao is still a really good hyper carry, current content just doesn't favor him. This was around the time Ito came out and yeah, Zhao was falling off. I, at the time, also thought Zhao was falling off, but the thing is I didn't do theory crafting or look into that many sheets back then, so I just took the word of other people and people in KQM I respected, as well as my friends who were just the Jeff fans, and my friends were telling me no, Zhao isn't falling off, he's really good. So I didn't do that much research into it and I just took their word to make this video, which is also why I didn't explain things as well, because I simply didn't really know myself. I was essentially just a mouthpiece for my friends on topics I wasn't that confident on, because I didn't know how to get resources that well back then. 98% of the time though, my information was mostly correct. And even more so now. Back on topic, in general, the KQM theory crafting community never really wanted to go back on their word, so they didn't look like hypocrites. It's the same reason why Venti and Freeze were so defended, to the point that you just couldn't bullshit them being top viable options anymore. And this is like no slight on KQM, it's still one of the most valuable resources. Theory crafting communities were just younger, I guess, is the best way to put it. This is so skewed to giving Eula the win, it's ridiculous. C2 riding can already be regarded as the best hyper carry in the game. That is what I try to avoid doing. It's when I just give a blanket statement and don't elaborate because I think it's extremely obvious. But when it comes down to subjective things, there's really no point in putting them in my courts. And it didn't even relate to the point either.
The Thrilling Tale suffers from having a 10-second duration with a 20-second cooldown, as well as much more restrictive rotations.
Skill issue. Kazaha regardless still has his set rotations to fully utilize his buff and get the most from it. Another problem with Kazaha's buff is the fact that it starts counting when the swirl is applied compared to TTDS, which starts when the character is on field, and having to constantly swap to Kazaha for buff uptime is an annoyance itself. Kazaha's Ascension 4 buff actually works from off field, so it isn't that bad. They do realize that single target damage isn't as important as AoE for more content. Another blanket statement, and that very much depends on the Abyss lineup. Baku Kenki is a very easy single target check, but something like the Weena is harder due to the nature of it. And in AoE, something like Rune Guards are a very easy AoE check, where anything spaced out or that gets knocked back easily is a hard AoE check. Jury is in agreement that Win to Lose is guilty with 18 years for misleading players, causing several overdose cases of copium, and extreme volatile simpage symptoms being developed in the average player base. Take him away, court is now closed. All in all, this was a very fun video to make. Nothing to do with me in this video directly, but do people still not get that my Genshin court act is a persona? My entire voice structure was altered completely the moment I snapped out of it. This is good fun and I can finally get the hell away from I Win to Lose and focus on other content. I have an upcoming pull recommendation vid for the 2.5 banners. Yeah, that video. That video never happened. Before finishing this piece of evidence, let's quickly address some other things that have happened in courts that are pretty funny. Going into a more recent one, and this is a Jeff Genshin court at the very end of the video. Okay, I am a very lazy person. I will always try and find the easiest way possible to make something happen, at the cost of me wanting to make a lot of things happen, which is why I edit my videos so much. Let me just play the clip.
Bennett, like somewhere else, she's kind of not that good.
Raiden has a ton of competitive non-Bennett teams even without Dendro. I genuinely don't get this take. In this script, I was supposed to say Raiden has some competitive non-Bennett teams, not a lot. I edit my videos super late at night or super early, and I didn't want to re-record this segment, and I didn't want to put text on the screen either, purely for ego reasons, even though that would be a lot easier. So I just committed and put two very jank teams on here, all because I didn't want to redo a segment. The last thing I want to talk about is that with courts, it's very hard to find the line between making a joke and giving information. In my second Vars court, I said Nilo gets negative bloom application, which was a joke. I'm aware she gets a decent amount of bloom procs. I just wanted to exaggerate it for the sake of humor. People took it seriously, which I don't blame them for. It's not a very obvious joke, I guess, and I didn't want to reply to their comment saying it was just a joke, as that looks like backpedaling. So I just ended up responding to some of the comments saying, yes, I was wrong, thank you for correcting me. And there are other cases like that where I exaggerate a claim as a joke, but who cares, let's move on to some other shit takes I've had. Post-editing flip here. I was actually talking about some of my old, very not well dated takes, but it felt like I was repeating a video, which I actually did cover some of my worst takes in my thank you video, which is just 3 minutes of me at the end being a dumbass. So I'll see you guys on the flip side.
Nate, go yard.
Peace.